Hey y'all, it's Kate from the Apothecary and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here to talk about The Year of Magical Thinking by Joan Didion. Now this was kind of a reread for me. I listened to the Audible version of the audiobook, which was actually based off of a one-woman play that was based off of Joan Didion's memoir by the same title. So first we had the memoir, which I read in grad school and instantly fell in love with Joan Didion's writing. And then Joan Didion herself adapted that memoir to a one-woman play, which was, I believe, on Broadway or off-Broadway, forget, for a number of years. And then Audible made an audiobook recording of that one-woman play, recorded and performed by Vanessa Redgrave, who I believe did the original one-woman play. And so this is kind of a reread, but also a first read in this format. Spoiler-free summary of what The Year of Magical Thinking is all about. So this is a memoir that weaves back and forth in time, examining grief, heartache, and resilience. When Joan Didion loses her husband and her daughter, she does the only thing that she can do, and she writes about it. And it is such a heart-wrenching book for me. I remember, like I said, I remember reading this back in grad school for my MFA, my first master's degree, and I read this in one of my nonfiction classes, and it stayed with me ever since then. It turned me instantly onto Joan Didion's writing, and I became an instant fan of her writing, especially her memoirs in long form. I've been reading one essay a month of hers in short form from her giant collection, We Tell Ourselves Stories in Order to Live, which is one of my favorite titles. But in this adaptation of The Year of Magical Thinking, the first 50% of this audiobook, I sobbed the entire way. I started this late at night one night when I was trying to fall asleep, and I just cried and cried and cried. Vanessa Redgrave's delivery of this book just hits me straight to the heart. I'm already getting tears just thinking about it. I get goosebumps just thinking about it. And I'll talk more about Vanessa Redgrave's in just a minute, but wow. Her delivery of this book is just unforgettable. I have this broken down into a couple different review categories as I do for my nonfiction. These are slightly different than in my fiction books, so bear with me. Writing style, this one I gave a 4 out of 5, even though this is absolutely my favorite Joan Didion book that I've read of hers. I cannot give it a full 5 out of 5 stars because just like with a lot of Joan Didion works, she goes off onto tangents in this work, and in this book she goes off onto medical tangents with medical jargon that I completely lose track of. And so for both writing style and content, I gave this one a 4 out of 5 for the same reasons, because when she started going off onto this medical jargon is when it kind of pulled me out of that emotional state that I was in. Kind of pulled me back from the book and the content in the book, and I, in a weird way, wanted to stay in that emotional state for the whole book, feeling those emotions that she was feeling. And maybe this is on purpose to get us further into her head at those moments, because she was going down this essentially medical rabbit hole trying to figure out what was happening and why it happened to her. But it brought me out of the emotional state that I was in, and it kind of, I had a hard time getting back to that state throughout the rest of the book. Audio, I talked about Vanessa Redgrave's audio performance in this. I gave this one a 5 out of 5 because it felt like Vanessa Redgrave became Joan Didion in this performance of the Year of Magical Thinking. And by becoming Joan Didion, she also became anyone who's ever gone through extreme grieving like Joan Didion did in the Year of Magical Thinking. Joan Didion lost both her husband and her daughter in the writing of this book, and it just, you feel that emotion so much. And Vanessa Redgrave's performance just is haunting, how good it is. Enjoyment, I gave a 5 out of 5. In a book like this, it's hard to say that I enjoyed it, but it moved me so much. It is an unforgettable performance by Vanessa Redgrave and an unforgettable book by Joan Didion that I will now forever recommend. If anyone wants to get into Joan Didion's writing and see what it's all about, you know, essays are an easy way to test the waters out, but they're not necessarily Joan Didion's best works, and so I don't know that I would necessarily recommend the essays to get a good representation of her writing. They're a quick way to get in because they're essays and so they're shorter, but not necessarily the best representation. But this book, whew, if you are looking for a good representation of Joan Didion's writing, you want an audio format that will completely just leave you breathless, highly recommend the Audible version performed by Vanessa Redgrave of The Year of Magical Thinking by Joan Didion. Of course, that gives us, going back to our ratings, that gives me a total of 18 divided by our 4 categories, which gives me a 4.5 out of 5. So you can see this book deeply, deeply affected me, but I did not give it 5 out of 5 stars. It's, with these new rating systems, it's very hard to get a 5 out of 5 for me. But I loved it so much, and I highly, highly recommend it. 2 quotes I want to leave you with. Now, these are paraphrased quotes because I wrote them down as I was listening. One has stayed with me ever since I read this book the very first time. Actually, both of these I remember reading for the very first time back in grad school, like 10 years ago now. He needed shoes if he returned. And this is Joan talking about her husband and her grieving process as she's cleaning out his stuff in their house. She refused to give away his shoes because she thought when he returns, he's gonna need them. And if you've ever been in the grieving process this deep, you know that thinking that so-and-so, whoever you're grieving for, is going to need this particular item when they return. Not if they return, but when they return. And Joan went through this thinking so much in this book. It just reached my heart so much because I've been there. I've felt that with loved ones, and it's a commonplace, but not a good place to be in because you know they're not going to return, but you can't give up that hope. The second one is life changes in the instant, and this just makes you stop and think and appreciate even the smallest moments, because in the quickest of a second, in an instant, your life can completely change, whether it's for good or for bad. And this just makes you think about those moments, every single moment that you're in. Even this moment that you're sitting there taking the time to watch this video, your life could be changing in an instant. Quotes like these have stayed with me for 10 years since I've read this book the first time, and it gives you an idea of the way that Joan Didion uses her words to not only reach you deep in your heart, but to leave you thinking long after you finish this book. And so I just had to share those 2 quotes with you all because they just have stayed with me for 10 years now, and it's unbelievable. So like I said, highly recommend the Audible audiobook version of The Year of Magical Thinking by Joan Didion, performed by Vanessa Redgrave. Life-changing performance. If you have read The Year of Magical Thinking before, let me know in the comments below. What did you think of it? If you have listened to this performance, were you as moved as I was by it? As always, keep reading, and I love you all to the moon and back. Bye.